In a royal visit to Kenya, King Charles, known for his tendency to skip lunch during busy royal tours, made a delightful stop at a local food truck, breaking his usual routine. The king's visit to Nairobi Street Kitchen provided him with the opportunity to explore and savor some popular local delicacies. His choices for this culinary adventure were a sag paneer kathi roll wrap and a butter chicken samosa, dishes that he humorously remarked could blow your head off. To ensure the monarch's comfort, the palace had advised the chefs not to make the dishes too spicy for the 74-year-old king. sous chef Rhoda Isio shared her experience, expressing how relaxed and informal the encounter with the king was. She admitted to feeling nervous before knowing that he would be trying their food. Indian cuisine is highly favored in Kenya, and the king's selection of these dishes was no surprise as they were incredibly popular among the local patrons. The purpose of King Charles's visit was to celebrate the rich cultural and creative scene in Kenya. His Majesty interacted with young creatives, including artisans, fashion designers, musicians, and artists, who have received support from the British Council. The king explored a pop-up exhibition featuring 7 booths, which showcased a diverse array of Kenyan creative products, including graphic novels and sustainable fish leather bags. Anthenia Mwendwa, owner of the label Saba, proudly shared her success story with the king, revealing that she had become the only African designer to have her products featured at prestigious events, such as the Oscars, Grammys, and Emmys, by adhering to a purely sustainable model. The king was greatly impressed by her achievements, emphasizing his interest in learning from different industries and promoting mutual learning and cooperation. During his visit, King Charles was particularly captivated by a stall featuring puppets from the company Buni Media. This organization runs a program in schools across Kenya, using a park ranger puppet called Matata to encourage children as young as 4 to protect local wildlife for the benefit of their communities. Nairobi Street Kitchen, located in the heart of the Westlands area, offers a modern street food market experience with a wide range of global food and drink options, as well as shops selling products created by local artisans. The venue also hosts live bands and showcases local art, creating a vibrant and dynamic atmosphere for visitors. The king made a noteworthy stop at a menswear stall that had received support from the British Council. He showed keen interest in a sample of gray and blue checked material, noting its familiarity with a suit he likely owned. Impressed by the craftsmanship and design, King Charles instructed his equerry to collect details of the business for a potential personal order. Sam Jarrow, the owner of Gentile custom-made suits, expressed his pleasure at the king's interest and stated that their designs embodied the perfect amalgamation of Kenyan flamboyance and British craftsmanship. The king appeared enthusiastic about the idea of having a suit tailored by them. Before concluding his visit, His Majesty took a moment to appreciate the Desi Loco Indian street food stand, where a band provided background music, adding to the overall festive atmosphere. Earlier in the day, King Charles presented a medal to a Kenyan soldier, Corporal Samuel Nthigemburia, who claims to be 117 years old. Corporal Mburia served in the British Army during World War II, stationed in Palestine and the Far East. This special ceremony took place at a Commonwealth War Graves Commission cemetery, where British and Kenyan military personnel came together for an act of remembrance. King Charles commended the veteran's incredible life and mentioned how he must have sustained himself on wild locusts and honey. During the Mau Mau Rebellion, many Kenyan Army veterans who had fought alongside the British chose to dispose of their medals to avoid being seen as collaborators. Corporal Mburia, speaking through his daughter, Ida Kigweni, expressed his happiness and pride in receiving his medals from the king. Among the medals he received was the Burma Star for his service in the Royal Engineers. Other veterans presented with replacement medals included Private John Kaveh, Private Kifa Chagira, and Private Ezekiel Nyanjum Anyanj. During the period of the Mau Mau Rebellion, some ex-soldiers either threw their medals into the sea or hid them, fearing repercussions. The veteran's age, claimed to be 117, has reportedly been verified by officials. This visit to Kenya allowed King Charles to engage with the local culture, appreciate creative talents, and enjoy some mouth-watering local cuisine. making it a memorable and enriching experience for both him and the Kenyan people. After World War II, a profound sense of resentment among the Kikuyu people in Kenya led to a series of attacks in 1952 orchestrated by a banned secret society known as the Mau Mau. These attacks were aimed at individuals loyal to the government. The escalating violence prompted Governor Evelyn Baring to declare a state of emergency in October 1952. As a result, Mau Mau leaders, including Jomo Kenyatta, who would later become Kenya's president, were apprehended by the authorities. During their visit, King Charles and Queen Camila also had the opportunity to meet Sam Mattock, who played a prominent role in identifying surviving veterans of World War II and acquiring replacement campaign medals for them. They participated in a poignant act of remembrance, standing alongside British and Kenyan military personnel, and learned about the Commission's efforts to ensure that all those who supported Britain in both world wars are duly commemorated. Upon arriving at Carriacou, they were warmly received by Deputy Defense Advisor Commander Edward Black, Royal Navy, Director General of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission Claire Horton, Regional Manager for East Africa at the Commonwealth War Graves Commission Daniel Achimi, and other dignitaries. In a solemn moment, they proceeded to the memorial cross for the act of remembrance. Colonel Alexo Kiprop, director of the Kenya Defense Forces Directorate of Military Affairs, recited the Ode to Remembrance, followed by the haunting strains of The Last Post, performed by a bugler from the Kenya Defense Forces. This was followed by a minute of silence, concluded by the Reveille. Both the King and Queen then placed a wreath at the memorial. The King was accompanied by personnel from the Kenya Defense Forces, while the Queen, who holds the position of Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, was joined by 2 guardsmen currently engaged in a military exercise in Kenya. Subsequently, the King had the opportunity to meet with individuals involved in the future of the Carriacou site, a former municipal cemetery containing 59 Commonwealth burials from the Second World War under the care of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Their Majesties were first greeted at State House by a traditional dance troupe from Narok, who welcomed them with a ceremonial dance of celebration. Queen Camila looked elegant in a blue tunic top and palazzo-style trousers designed by one of her favorite designers, Anna Valentine. She adorned herself with a diamond elephant bracelet and a necklace that had once belonged to her beloved grandmother by Van Cleef and Arpels. The King, following the dress code that did not require black tie, posed for photographs with his wife and their hosts, President William Ruto of Kenya and First Lady Rachel Ruto. They stood against the stunning backdrop of State House, which was illuminated for the occasion, before proceeding down a red carpet. Later that morning, King Charles delivered an environmental speech at the United Nations office in Nairobi, where he was hailed as ahead of his time. In his impassioned address, he emphasized the urgent need for action and stressed the importance of collective efforts in addressing environmental challenges. To the applause of delegates, he delivered portions of his speech in Swahili. As he arrived outside the UN office, the King planted a muthiga tree, an endangered East African green heart used for medicinal purposes, and wished it good luck while asking to be updated on its growth. The King was warmly received by UN staff, some of whom had brought their children and partners, and he interacted with the crowd as he walked through the building. Inside the plenary, he addressed the delegates. The UN Director General welcomed the King to the podium and expressed deep honor for his choice of Kenya as his first state visit to both Africa and a member of the Commonwealth. In response, King Charles expressed his deep concern about the urgent mission to combat climate change and biodiversity loss. He stressed the severity of the challenges posed by global warming, biodiversity loss, and climate change, and the need for collaboration and commitment to address these issues. The King received a round of applause from the delegates in appreciation of his message and commitment to addressing environmental challenges. In a noteworthy departure from expectations, King Charles delivered a keynote speech in which he expressed his greatest sorrow and deepest regret for the abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence perpetrated by Britain during the colonial era in Kenya. He acknowledged that there was no excuse for the wrongdoings committed by the British, particularly during the Mau Mau Rebellion, which was a significant and painful chapter in Kenya's history. During a state banquet in Nairobi, King Charles expressed the significance of the shared history between the United Kingdom and Kenya. Addressing the Kenyan president and a gathering of 350 guests, he acknowledged that this historical connection had brought their people together. However, he also recognized the painful and regrettable aspects of their long and complex relationship. The king explicitly stated that the wrongdoings of the past, including abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence against Kenyans during their struggle for independence and sovereignty, were a source of deep sorrow and regret. While he stopped short of offering a direct apology, as it goes against British government policy, he emphasized the importance of addressing their shared history with honesty and openness. King Charles stressed the significance of his visit to Kenya, aiming to deepen his understanding of the wrongs committed in the past and to meet individuals whose lives and communities were profoundly affected. He acknowledged that the past could not be changed, but by confronting it honestly, they could demonstrate the strength of their current friendship and continue building a closer bond for the future. The Kenyan President Ruto delivered a stronger worded address, hinting at potential demands for reparations. He emphasized that Britain and Kenya should not deny their historical realities, highlighting the displacement, dispossession, and disenfranchisement of native Africans that paved the way for brutal colonialism. Ruto regarded previous British compensation efforts, totaling £20 million, as inadequate, and he called for further reparations to be made. Despite this, President Ruto commended King Charles for his visionary leadership in shedding light on uncomfortable truths about their shared history. He believed that under the king's leadership, Kenya-United Kingdom relations would continue to prosper. King Charles charmed his audience by using Swahili phrases, and his pronunciation was described as impeccable. He emphasized the special meaning Kenya held for his family, particularly his late mother, who discovered she was queen while in the country. He also fondly mentioned his son, the Prince of Wales, proposing to his wife near Mount Kenya. The king concluded his speech on a positive note, saying in Swahili, "Umoja ni nguvu," which translates to "Unity is strength." Mwangi Macharia, the head of the African Center for Corrective and Preventive Action, suggested that Britain should follow Germany's example in apologizing for its abuses in Namibia and funding projects worth over €1 billion. The historical context in Kenya includes the story of Nandi King Koitalel Arap Samoei, who led a decade-long rebellion until he was killed by a British colonel in 1905. Subsequently, the British confiscated much of his people's land and cattle. Samoei's great-grandson, Kipchoge Arap Chomu, acknowledged British contributions to Kenya, such as education and public health systems, but insisted that historical injustices needed to be remedied. He called for a public apology from the British government and reparations following such an apology. Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camila were given a warm welcome at the State House in Kenya. They were greeted by a Maya traditional dance troupe from Narok, who performed a ceremonial dance to celebrate their visit. Queen Camila looked stunning in a blue tunic top and palazzo-style trousers designed by her favorite designer, Anna Valentine. She adorned herself with a diamond elephant bracelet and a necklace that had once belonged to her beloved grandmother from Van Cleef and Arpels. The king, dressed in a lounge suit due to the dress code not requiring black tie, posed for photographs alongside his wife and their hosts, President William Ruto of Kenya and First Lady Rachel Ruto. The backdrop of the State House, illuminated for the occasion, provided a magnificent setting as they walked down a red carpet. The royal couple enjoyed an extravagant 8-course menu. 1. Beetroot and goat cheese foam with hazelnut crumble. 2. Cream of roasted butternut, chestnut, and truffle soup. 3. Malindi lobster and seared seafood ravioli with flavored bisque. 4. Watercress and Stilton salad with candied apples and walnuts. 5. Palate cleanser, lemon and raspberry sorbet. 6. Pan-seared salmon with champagne beurre blancs. 7. Beef Wellington, chateau potatoes, and minted asparagus, with chicken Wellington for the high table. 8. Dessert Symphony, a visually stunning dessert platter with miniature portions of Kenyan and British-inspired honey cake, carrot and walnut square, Earl Grey tea crumble, and Sarova chocolate cake. petit fours and coffee, including chocolate truffles and macaroons with Kenyan coffee or tea. Among the distinguished guests were Foreign Minister James Cleverly and his wife. Earlier in the day, Charles and Camilla paid their respects to Mau Mau fighters and other key figures who contributed to Kenya's struggle for independence. They paused at statues of two freedom fighters at the Mashujaa Museum. They also visited the Mugomo tree at Nairobi's Uhuru Gardens, which was planted to commemorate the moment when Kenya declared independence by lowering the Union flag 60 years ago. Accompanied by Queen Camilla, who wore a cream Anna Valentine dress and a diamond oyster brooch that belonged to Queen Elizabeth, King Charles laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown warrior. Amid these more solemn moments, the royal couple also had lighter experiences, including a well-received walkabout and visits to a local library and culture hub during the initial day of their 4-day visit. They interacted with local children, including those participating in the Prince's Trust International Enterprise Challenge. Charles also explored an array of entrepreneurial ventures during a visit to a tech and innovation showcase in the Kenyan capital, where he admired a portrait of Queen Camilla. The king displayed excitement as he explored a vast piece of land behind Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital. In just 12 months, the area had been transformed into a thriving organic holding, producing a variety of vegetables, herbs, chickens, and even fish and snails in 2 ponds. Hospital chef Nellie Njagi received a basket of vegetables, with the final few picked by the king. She mentioned that the organic food was beneficial for the patient's recovery. The king also had the opportunity to view a selection of large African land snails bred by staff at the farm. He found amusement in learning that snail slime was used in the beauty industry for women's facial products. Charles was intrigued by the larvae of black soldier flies used to convert vegetable waste into fertilizer. He was also impressed by the farm's use of natural pesticides, including rabbit urine and vertical planting. He briefly entered a polytunnel where high temperatures were helping to ripen tomatoes. Gregory Kimeni, the founder and CEO of City Shamba, said that having the king tour their farm was a significant validation of their organic farming methods, emphasizing the importance of taking control of the food system. Earlier, King Charles laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown warrior at Uhuru Gardens on the outskirts of Nairobi. This visit was marked by Kenya's colonial history. Afterward, he walked to the Mugomo tree, a fig tree that signifies the moment when Kenya declared independence and raised its own flag on December 12, 1963. This tree is considered a shrine and a symbol of Kenya's turbulent history, and it is believed that taking cuttings from it results in lightning strikes and death. Their Majesties King Charles and Queen Camilla embarked on a visit to Nairobi's Uhuru Gardens, a significant location where the king participated in a commemorative event. They commenced their visit by unveiling a plaque and paying their respects at the tomb of the unknown warrior. Subsequently, the royal couple took in the view of the Mugomo tree, a symbol planted on the day Kenya declared its independence. In Kiswahili, Uhuru signifies freedom. While at the tree, Samson Malaki, curator of the nearby Mashujaa Museum, provided an informative explanation of the tree's historical importance. Malaki emphasized that the Mugomo tree is not merely a historic landmark, but also a shrine embodying the nation's history. He revealed that various Kenyan communities make pilgrimages to the tree to conduct cultural practices beneath its branches, including animal sacrifices, prayers, and blessings. The tree, nearly 59 years old, is expected to thrive for up to 300 years, making it a living witness for future generations. The tree is considered a shrine due to a curious phenomenon. When branches are severed from it, those responsible are reportedly struck by lightning. As a result, it is strictly prohibited to take cuttings from the tree, and its natural lifespan must be respected. The king showed great interest in the tree and inquired about its fruit-bearing capabilities. Earlier in their visit, King Charles and Queen Camilla were welcomed by Kenya's President William Ruto and First Lady Rachel Ruto. The national anthems of both the UK and Kenya were played by the Kenya Defence Forces Band, and the king unveiled a commemorative plaque. Later, King Charles and President Ruto walked towards the tomb of the unknown warrior, standing in solemn silence as the last post was performed. The king then took part in laying a large wreath on behalf of the couple, and both he and President Ruto took a moment to reflect. The royal couple engaged in a brief walkabout, meeting military families who had gathered to greet them. While shaking hands, King Charles mentioned the inclement weather, humorously cautioning, "Don't get too wet." During the visit, King Charles held a bilateral meeting with President Ruto, while Queen Camila explored a gallery of images presented by the First Lady. Learning about Mama Doing Good, the socio-economic development organization she founded in 1997 to assist women, youth, and vulnerable individuals in Kenya. For their official visit, King Charles wore a smart lounge suit, while Queen Camilla was elegantly attired in a white crepe silk Anna Valentine dress, accentuated by a diamond oyster brooch formerly owned by the late Queen Elizabeth II. Before the formal proceedings began, the royal couple, along with President Ruto and his wife, posed for photographs with the president's official residence in the background. Subsequently, a guard of honor, arranged in 2 rows, offered a royal salute, accompanied by the national anthems of both the UK and Kenya, and a 21-gun salute. King Charles inspected the troops, walking past soldiers clad in red tunics and peaked caps. During their visit to the Eastlands Library, the King and Queen interacted with a small crowd before engaging with various initiatives. Queen Camilla met the founders of a literary project, while the King interacted with youngsters participating in a business simulation game designed to foster entrepreneurial thinking, some of whom had never used a laptop before. The King shared a moment of laughter with a Kenyan girl who mentioned that the computer game had provided them with the unique networking opportunity of meeting the King. This group of children hails from disadvantaged rural areas and has been supported by a project co-run by Prince's Trust International, a charity associated with King Charles. Overall, the royal visit to Nairobi's Uhuru Gardens was a meaningful and engaging experience, with the King and Queen showing a genuine interest in Kenya's culture, history, and the aspirations of its youth. Erna Grass, the CEO of Asante Africa Foundation, a charity partner of PTI, shared her observations about a remarkable group of young individuals during a recent event in Nairobi. These young people had traveled an arduous 16-hour bus journey from the northernmost region of the country to attend this event. For most of them, this trip marked their first encounter with a full-length mirror, and they were amazed by everyday conveniences like hot water spigots in showers, something they had never experienced before. It was also their first time having a bed all to themselves, without sharing it with family members. During the event, one of these young participants expressed a sentiment that resonated deeply with Erna Grass. They mentioned that they are typically the ones watching important figures on television, but on this day, the important people were there to watch and support them. Will Straw, the CEO of PTI, spoke about their Enterprise Challenge program, which is designed to inspire young people to consider entrepreneurship as a viable path to meaningful employment. The demographic pressures in Kenya and various other parts of Africa suggest that there won't be enough formal job opportunities to accommodate the rising number of young people entering the labor market. Amidst these discussions, Queen Elizabeth took the opportunity to engage with children, urging them to explore the world just as they do in books. She spent time at Eastlands Library in Nairobi, where she enjoyed a Kenyan story time with 14 children. The children read passages from the book Lion and Mouse by Catalina Echeverry, and the Queen smiled warmly as she listened to them while they sat cross-legged on the floor. She encouraged them to work hard and keep reading, emphasizing the importance of continued exploration through books. Mary Kinyanjui, representing the Kenyan National Library Service, appreciated the Queen's encouragement for the children to delve further into their reading and exploration of the world. The Queen's visit to Eastlands Library also allowed her to meet the founders of BookBunk, a Kenyan charity that works on transforming public libraries into palaces for people. The visit included interactions with local performers, artists, and the library's giant chessboard. She also greeted Ms. Kayla Bosire, the 2021 Queen's Commonwealth Essay Competition winner. Neil Wagan, the UK High Commissioner to Nairobi, highlighted the enthusiastic response of the Kenyan people to the royal visit. He underscored the strong ties between Kenya and the UK, encompassing various aspects, from counterterrorism and climate change to trade. He noted that Kenya is a rapidly developing country, and the royal visit serves to enhance the relationship between the two nations. While some voices advocate for reparations and an apology regarding Britain's treatment of the Mau Mau rebels in the 1950s, such sentiments represent a minority perspective. Most Kenyans are looking towards the future and focusing on collaborative efforts with the UK. This visit marked the King and Queen's first to a Commonwealth country, strengthening the UK's relationship with Kenya through the soft diplomacy of the royal family. Kenya's 60th independence anniversary was an occasion for reflection and celebration, and the King held bilateral discussions with Kenyan leaders while Camila engaged in separate talks. As the royal couple arrived in Nairobi, they did so without fanfare, signifying an administrative arrival before the official ceremonial welcome in the capital. President Ruto, who extended the invitation to the British monarch, aims to ensure that the royal visit paves the way for a brighter future. The King, known for his adept statesmanship, is determined not to sidestep pressing issues. It is expected that the banquet, featuring his first major public address of the trip, will provide an ideal platform for addressing these important matters. One royal source emphasized the King's belief in the importance of people being heard and acknowledged at the highest levels, underlining the significance of this historic visit. They stated that His Majesty would approach the subject with great diplomacy, humanity, and humility, much like he did during state visits to France and Germany, even though the UK's relationships with these nations had been strained for various reasons. The King has a remarkable way with language and a deep personal connection with all communities, which can aid in healing historical wounds with warmth, understanding, and utmost sensitivity. Often, it's about listening more than speaking. Many times, people just want to be heard and for the wrongs of the past to be acknowledged at the highest levels, and this is the right thing to do. While the Kenyan government desires that this visit primarily focuses on celebrating the present and building the future, a symbolic recognition of the past is seen as an important step in renewing existing friendships and sharing ambitions for the two great nations. Charles will also address this issue during other engagements, details of which cannot be disclosed in advance for security reasons. The King and Queen are commencing their state visit to Kenya from today until November 3. Charles's Deputy Private Secretary, Chris Fitzgerald, has mentioned that the monarch will acknowledge the more painful aspects of the United Kingdom and Kenya's shared history, including the 1952 emergency or Mau Mau revolt, as Kenya approaches its 60th anniversary of independence. The British colonial presence in Kenya officially began in 1895 when white settlers were granted vast tracts of fertile farmland, and Kenya became a British colony in 1920. In 1953, the British declared a state of emergency in response to strikes and violent opposition, led by the Mau Mau Party, stemming from growing anger over the dispossession of Kenyan lands and lack of political rights. The Kenya Human Rights Commission reports that 90,000 Kenyans were executed, tortured, or maimed during Britain's harsh crackdown. The country eventually achieved independence in November 1963, while Queen Elizabeth was on the throne. In 2013, the British government issued a historic statement of regret over the torture and other forms of ill treatment carried out by the colonial administration and compensated around 5,200 Kenyans with £19.9 million for human rights abuses. Kenyan activists continue to demand an apology and reparations for their immense suffering under British rule. As reported by the Daily Mail earlier this month, the King will be the first member of the royal family to acknowledge Britain's mea culpa. Despite the historical complexities, the two countries have maintained a warm relationship since gaining independence, and it is anticipated that the state visit will strengthen these ties. It is understood that the request for this visit came from Kenya's President Ruto, who is eager to emphasize their shared future. At a recent Buckingham Palace reception for the Kenyan diaspora in the UK, attendees expressed excitement and optimism about the upcoming visit. Elizabeth Kangeth, a Barking and Dagenham councillor who came to the UK 20 years ago and was named after the late Queen Elizabeth, shared her perspective, saying, "We have changed as countries since independence. Things happened that shouldn't have, but life has moved on, and we are glad that we are both moving together forwards. There is a lot of affection between the two countries, and I am very proud of the way His Majesty is embracing Kenya. He will receive a very warm welcome. Dear friend, if you like everything new about the royal family and don't want to miss all the novelties, subscribe to our channel and like it. By doing so, you take part in our development. We work for you.